Babes, if surviving Mother's Day was an Olympic sport, we would both be standing on the podium right now taking home gold medals. I am just, I am completely, utterly, and fundamentally emotionally depleted.
Oh, I think my soul actually left my body somewhere between like the cucumber water station and the extraction phase of the facials. It's just a lot.
Good morning, good evening, good day, good whenever. If you are back from last week, we love you, we see you. And babes, if you are new here, go ahead and subscribe right now because we are your people, and honestly, you are going to freaking love us. Welcome to the Snark side.
The only place where your emotional damage is, our primary form of entertainment.
Exactly. Because babes, today was Mother's Day. And we need to just look each other in the eye and be completely honest about this. It was chaotic. It was a total, absolute shit show.
I am already pouring the wine, like I am pouring it aggressively right now.
The wine is absolutely on deck. Because, babes, talking about what we went through today and then transitioning into what we watched on our screens this week, Lord, we need the wine. Just to set the stage for the Snark Squad listening at home, we decided, in a moment of just sheer unadulterated delusion, to take both of our mothers to the spa together.
Yeah, it sounded like a good idea in theory, right? Like, oh, let's bond, let's do pedicures, let's get massages and have a beautiful, aesthetic lunch.
And what it actually was a masterclass in psychological warfare. I mean, the passive-aggressive comments started in the literal parking lot. My mom looked at my cuticles and just sighed, just this heavy burden sigh, as if my lack of cuticle oil was like a personal reflection of her failures as a parent.
Oh my God, and my mom spent the entire 60-minute deep tissue massage aggressively whispering to the massage therapist about how I don't call her enough, fully knowing I was on the table right next to her. Like, I was trapped face down in a donut hole, forced to listen to this.
Yeah. It's the emotional exhaustion of managing two highly potent, deeply specific brands of maternal narcissism in the exact same poorly lit, eucalyptus-scented room. I was literally spiraling. You were trying to keep everyone happy. You were trying to make sure the lunch order is correct so nobody throws a subtle tantrum about, like, the amount of dressing on a salad. And by the end of it, you just feel hollowed out.
Low-key, I am so wildly excited that this day is over.
Yes. Like, obviously, yes, we love our moms. And yes, you guys know we love chaos. We live for the mess. But, babes, this was a lot. The sheer performance of it all, having to curate your entire personality for 5 hours just to keep the peace.
We did buy them beautiful gifts, by the way. Like, we aren't monsters.
No, of course not.
But honestly, the psychological toll of handing over those gifts and waiting for the micro expressions of judgment, that is another therapy session entirely.
We will definitely save that. Because honestly, the pre-recording Mother's Day chaos was actually the perfect palate cleanser for what we need to talk about today. Emotionally. We were already unstable. We were already hovering right on the edge of a breakdown. So sitting down with our Ryan to watch Season 3, Episode 5 of Euphoria, an episode literally titled, This Little Piggy, it felt like coming home.
It really did, because you think managing a passive-aggressive mother at a day spa is hard. Try managing a 50-foot-tall narcissistic influencer who is actively crushing downtown Los Angeles with her bare hands.
Babes, we have to get into this recap because I am dying to unpack this mess. Imagine making $50,000 in a single day, but the only catch is you have to alienate every person you've ever loved, abandon your entire moral compass, and slowly turn into a literal monstrous caricature of yourself. Would you do it?
I mean, if you're Cassie Howard, the answer isn't just yes. The answer is, can I sell the jar I farted in for extra $700?
Oh my God, the fart jar. We are getting into all of it. Because this episode is a massive structural shift for the show. For 2 seasons, we were in a cocoon, right? A very dark, glittery, drug-addled cocoon, but still, high school. Now, the high school safety net is completely gone. These characters have been thrust into the brutal, hyper-capitalist machinery of the adult world.
And what's terrifying is that the adult world just doesn't care about their teenage angst. The systems they are entering now, like the attention economy, the criminal underworld, they actively reward instability. Chaos is structurally profitable now.
Let's start with the most profitable chaos of all. Cassie's ascension into the stratosphere of the attention economy. We pick up right after a viral stunt with Brendan Fontaine. And babes, the numbers they show on her OnlyFans dashboard are staggering. 50,000 subscribers in 24 hours.
Which, if we do the math, is life-altering, generational wealth accumulating literally overnight. And what happens when a deeply insecure, validation-starved person is suddenly handed a megaphone and millions of dollars? The demands from the audience immediately start escalating.
Right, because it's never enough.
Exactly. She starts with basic modeling, and then it gets into this hyper-specific, bizarre territory. She's doing ASMR, which, for the Snark squad who might not know, are those videos where people whisper into high-fidelity microphones or tap their fingernails on glass to trigger this weird, tingly sensory response in the viewer.
And she's selling her worn, unwashed underwear to strangers on the internet. And then we get to the moment that literally set the internet on fire this week. The $700 request for her to fart in a mason jar.
And she doesn't even do it herself. That's the most unhinged part. She makes Maddy do it.
Which is so deeply symbolic of their relationship right now, but we will get to Maddy in a second. Because Cassie doesn't just stop at the fetish content. She takes this massive sudden visibility and decides she needs to be a thought leader. She goes on this massive podcast tour. And babes, she is sitting there in a cameo sequence that features actual real-world internet chaos agent Trisha Paytas, and Cassie starts spouting these intense right-wing tradwife talking points.
Let's define tradwife really quickly, just in case anyone has blissfully managed to avoid this cursed algorithmic rabbit hole. The tradwife, or traditional wife movement, is this aesthetic and ideological trend where women glorify mid-century 1950s gender roles.
Yeah, making sourdough from scratch, right?
Exactly. They preach submission to their husbands, staying home, churning their own butter, and basically arguing that modern feminism has actually ruined women's lives.
And Cassie is on these podcasts, sitting across from these alpha male crypto bros, looking dead into the camera and saying that modern men are like forced to walk around on their tippy toes. She actually compares traditional marriage expectations to slurs. It is so wildly offensive and completely unhinged.
But here is where we have to read between the lines. The show isn't validating these talking points. It is exposing the cold, hard mathematics of the modern internet. Cassie doesn't believe a single word she's saying. Maddy actually articulates the entire thesis of this plotline perfectly. She tells Cassie, the angrier these idiots get, the more money you make.
Yes. You've probably noticed this on your own TikTok feeds, babes. The algorithm doesn't care if you are smiling, crying, or screaming in absolute rage at your phone. It only cares that your eyeballs are locked on the screen. Engagement is engagement. Outrage is literally the most highly monetizable asset in our culture right now.
And the irony is just so thick you could choke on it. Cassie is sitting in front of these microphones echoing these male provider traditional gender role talking points, lamenting how men aren't allowed to be the hunters and gatherers anymore, while in reality, she is the sole breadwinner.
She is literally funding Nate's entire existence. Maddy calls Nate a bread loser, which is my new absolute favorite term for a man who brings nothing to the table. Cassie is preaching a gospel of male dominance while actively financing the life of a man who is utterly powerless. It is a complete grift.
Right. The ideology she's selling is just another product. It is no different than the fart jar. It's whatever the algorithm demands that day to keep the engagement metrics spiking.
Okay, but this brings me to the sequence that I actually need to fight with you about. Because the show takes this metaphor of her growing ego, this idea that she is expanding to fill the space the internet gives her, and makes it completely literally visual. And honestly, I hated it. I am talking about the 10-minute, highly surreal sequence where Cassie turns into a 50-foot-tall monster.
The homage to the 1958 B-movie attack of the 50-foot woman?
Yes. We get this massive kaiju-sized Sydney Sweeney stomping through what looks like a Hollywood backlot miniature replica of Los Angeles. She is literally crushing a skyscraper with her breasts while a tiny man in an office building watches her videos on his computer screen. I have to push back on this whole sequence. I think Sam Levinson completely failed here because it breaks the emotional realism that we rely on this show for.
Really? See, I don't think so at all.
It felt like straight-up fetish content disguised as high art. Like, we get the point. Her ego is huge. Did we really need a 10-minute Hollywood budget miniature set to prove it?
See, I completely disagree with you. I don't think it's a failure at all. I think it's one of the most brilliant, abrasive things the show has ever done.
It dragged on forever. I was looking around my living room like, am I hallucinating this right now?
Because you're looking at it as a narrative plot point instead of a structural critique. Think about what we are watching. We are watching a female body being algorithmically inflated to an unnatural, monstrous size purely to consume attention. It is a highly self-aware meta-commentary on how Sydney Sweeney herself is consumed by the real-world media.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the show is holding up a mirror to the audience. You think it's grotesque. The show is saying, this is what you created. You clicked on the links, you commodified her body, and now she is too big to be contained by the narrative.
But the visual language of it is so jarring. Euphoria has always been boundary pushing, but it was usually grounded in the emotional reality of the teenagers. Taking 10 minutes to do a campy practical effects monster movie feels like a massive departure. It feels contemptuous of the character. Like, remember season 1, Cassie?
Yeah, she was looking for love.
Exactly. She had this incredibly dark, compelling interiority. She was a girl desperately searching for love and validation through the male gaze. And now, she has been flattened into a literal, one-dimensional, inflatable doll.
But that is exactly the tragedy of her arc. The internet flattens you. You cannot maintain human complexity when your entire existence is optimized for a scroll. The 50-foot woman sequence is campy, yes, but it visualizes the exact feeling of virality. She is simultaneously towering over everyone, powerful enough to crush a city, while still fundamentally performing for a tiny, pathetic man in a cubicle. Her power is massive, but it is entirely conditional on his gaze.
Okay, when you put it like that, I mean the idea that she is a god but still a slave to the viewer, that is depressing as hell. But as massive as Cassie has become, she is just the balloon. She isn't the one tying the knot or holding the string. Which brings us to the basement.
Ah, yes, the absolute architect of the chaos.
Let's talk about Maddy. Because, babes, if you thought Maddy Perez was terrifying in high school when she was just fighting in bathrooms, Maddy, in the adult world, is a completely different species of predator. When we catch up with her, the visual contrast to Cassie couldn't be starker. Cassie is crushing skyscrapers, and Maddy is in a dingy basement apartment working as an assistant, literally picking up dog poop off the floor for her boss.
It is entirely unglamorous. It is degrading. But the secret is, Maddy doesn't care about the dog poop because she is secretly managing Cassie's entire OnlyFans and podcast empire from her phone, and she is taking a cool 15% cut of everything.
I am obsessed with this evolution. Maddy used to be driven by pure emotion. Her entire high school existence was about volatility, screaming matches, and this chaotic desire to control Nate through toxic codependency. But she got burned. And now? The adult world has hardened her into this ruthless systems architect. She doesn't treat human connection as an emotional pursuit anymore. She treats people as inputs to be optimized.
She is the algorithm personified. And she has to be, because the sharks are circling her asset. We see Brandon Fontaine, the influencer who gave Cassie her initial viral bump, trying to poach her. He takes Cassie to dinner and pitches her on moving into his drill house.
Which, can we explain what a drill house is? Because it sounds like a hardware store, but it's actually a psychological torture chamber for Gen Z.
A drill house is a specific type of TikTok collab house. Imagine a massive, sterile, rented McMansion in the Hollywood Hills where 10 influencers live together. But they don't really live. They are physically isolated from the outside world to turn their entire existence into a 24/7 content farm.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. They do choreographed dances to Charlie XCX's Apple in the kitchen. They manufacture fake drama for views. And they essentially surrender their individual autonomy to the house brand.
Right. And Brandon is trying to convince Cassie that Maddy is just a lowly assistant who doesn't know the industry and that Cassie needs to join his house to legitimize her fame. And Cassie, babes, she is so weak. She is so susceptible to male validation and the promise of immediate gratification. You can literally see her eyes glaze over. She is ready to jump ship.
But Maddy is playing chess while Cassie is playing Go Fish. Maddy realizes she is losing her grip, so she pulls off this incredibly manipulative high-stakes bluff that perfectly targets Cassie's deepest psychological vulnerability.
The LA Knights phone call. Oh my God, I was screaming at my television.
It is so brilliant. Maddy sits right in front of Cassie and fakes a phone call, pretending to cancel a highly coveted, completely non-existent audition for the daytime soap opera LA Knights. And the mechanism of why this works is fascinating. Cassie has all the digital fame in the world right now. She has millions of followers. But what modern digital influencers crave more than anything else is legacy validation.
They want to be real actors.
Exactly. They want traditional Hollywood to validate them because digital fame feels cheap and fleeting.
So the mere threat of losing access to a real television audition makes Cassie absolutely panic. Her digital ego evaporates in a second. Maddy uses that FOMO, that fear of missing out on legitimacy, as leverage. Cassie folds instantly. She signs a legally binding, ironclad management contract with Maddy right there on the kitchen island, without even looking at the fine print.
It's a deeply predatory move. Maddy essentially tricks her into indentured servitude, but within the logic of this hyper-capitalist world, it is highly effective. Maddy secured the bag.
But then Maddy has to actually produce the audition. She bluffed way too hard, and now she needs a miracle. So she turns to Lexi, Cassie's sister, who is actually working as a PA on the soap opera. Maddy tracks Lexi down and practically escorts her. She basically threatens to destroy Lexi's life if she doesn't sneak Cassie onto the casting list. Lexi reluctantly caves, which leads to the most baffling, incredible scene of the entire episode.
The Shakespeare monologue.
Babes, the setup for this scene is pure cringe comedy. Cassie walks into this sterile, fluorescent-lit casting room. She is wearing this incredibly inappropriate, low-cut outfit. She is reading for a background role, literally titled Job Applicant. The casting directors look like they want to die. And instead of reading the standard two-line soap opera sides, Cassie launches into a highly dramatic, classical monologue from Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra.
As a viewer, you are watching through your fingers. Like, you are waiting for the secondhand embarrassment to become fatal. You are waiting for them to laugh her out of the room.
But they don't. That's the crazy part. The scene shifts. The performance surprisingly morphs into something genuinely breathtaking. Sydney Sweeney digs into this well of pure, unrefined desperation within Cassie, and she channels it into the Shakespeare. It is raw, it is messy, but it is undeniably powerful. She proves that underneath all the algorithmic shock value and the fart jars, she possesses an absolute, terrifying hunger to succeed. She nails it, and she books the role.
Which prompts that incredible interaction with Lexi in the hallway afterward. Lexi is furious. She looks at Cassie, who just humiliated her and bypassed the entire system. And Lexi says, "You are the most narcissistic, selfish person I have ever met."
And Cassie doesn't even blink. She just beams with pride, completely devoid of shame, and says, that's what it takes to make it in this town.
It perfectly encapsulates the show's deeply cynical view of the entertainment industry. Selfishness isn't a character flaw to be overcome, it's a prerequisite for entry.
And Maddy recognizes that same ruthless drive in herself, which is why she's not stopping with Cassie. Maddy secures a meeting with Alamo.
We need to talk about Alamo, because he is the bridge between the influencer world and the cartel world.
Maddy meets him at the diner, and she is entirely unafraid. She lays out her business plan. She projects that with her optimizing Cassie's funnels, Cassie will be pulling in $1 million a month in pure profit. Alamo, who is a man entirely motivated by power, control, and revenue streams, looks at this 20-something girl in a tracksuit and is deeply impressed. They realize they speak the exact same language of exploitation.
They partner up. Alamo effectively gives Maddy access to his human inventory. Maddy signs 2 of his top exotic dancers from his club, the Silver Slipper, Kitty, and Magic, to her new management portfolio. Maddy is building an empire.
Okay, but honestly, what happens to Cassie when Maddy's attention shifts?
Yeah.
Because Cassie's entire fragile sense of self-worth is currently propped up by Maddy acting as her personal puppet master. When Maddy starts dedicating her time to Kitty and Magic, Cassie's going to lose her mind.
Oh, she will completely unravel. Cassie is an addict, and attention is her drug of choice. Right now, Maddy is providing a controlled, highly profitable dosage. If Maddy cuts off that singular focus, Cassie is going to experience withdrawal. I suspect this perceived abandonment will drive Cassie right back into the manipulative arms of Brandon Fontaine, or worse, it will make her susceptible to Nate's horrific advice.
Speaking of Nate, babes, let's take a deep breath, have a sip of your wine. Because while Cassie and Maddy are ruthlessly climbing the ladder of Los Angeles, stepping on everyone's necks to get to the top, the people they left behind are sinking deep, deep into the mud. We have to talk about the downward spirals of Nate, Jacobs, and Jules.
The contrast is genuinely jarring. We cut from the bright artificial lights of Cassie's casting office directly to the absolute physical degradation of Nate Jacobs.
It is a stunning reversal of fortune. If you think back to season 1, Nate Jacobs was a god. He was this terrifying, untouchable king of the high school hallways. He was obsessed with control, with his pristine image, with weaponizing his toxic masculinity. And now, he is broke. He is a staggering $1 million in debt to the loan shark Naz.
We see him living in this massive, empty, trashed mansion. It is just overflowing with rotting takeout boxes, empty liquor bottles, and literal garbage. He looks physically unwell. He is a shell of a human being.
And the craziest part is that Cassie, despite having moved out, is still wiring him these massive installments of cash. $30,000 here, $35,000 there. But the psychological shift in Nate is what is truly terrifying to me. The old Nate would have been violently emasculated by a woman financially supporting him. His entire worldview is built on patriarchal dominance. But this new Nate, he is completely surrendered. He doesn't even use the money to pay down his debts to Naz.
No, he uses it to fund his depression. And worse, he actively encourages Cassie to sleep with Brandon Fontaine. He tells her over the phone that collaborating with Brandon will boost her follower count and make them both more money. He has completely abandoned his pride, his jealousy, and his dominance in exchange for passive income. He is the ultimate bread loser.
But the physical toll of his choices finally catches up to him. Because he is ignoring his payments to the syndicate, Naz's henchman breaks into the trashed mansion. And babes, I had to look away. I physically could not watch this scene. It felt like I accidentally changed the channel to a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yeah, it was incredibly gruesome, relying heavily on practical, visceral effects rather than clean CGI. The henchman physically tortures him. He calmly, methodically rips off Nate's recently reattached pinky toe, and then, just to prove a point about the compounding interest on his debt, he cuts off Nate's ring finger.
It is horrific. But why the shift in tone? Why is Euphoria suddenly doing Reservoir Dogs?
Because the violence isn't just for shock value. It is a literal, physical dismantling of his patriarchal power. Every time Naz's henchman removes a digit, Nate loses his footing literally with the toe and his grip on the world. Both Nate and Jules are currently trapped in prisons, but Nate's prison is one of physical dismemberment. He is losing pieces of his body episode by episode, mirroring his complete loss of systemic power. He used to inflict terror on marginalized people in his hometown. Now he is just a passive, bleeding victim of a larger, scarier system.
And then there's Jules, who is in a very different kind of prison, but it is equally suffocating. Jules is trapped in this incredibly sterile, loveless, transactional arrangement with her plastic surgeon sugar daddy, Ellis.
Right. Contrast Nate's filthy mansion with Jules' environment. She's living in this gorgeous, swanky, minimalist white penthouse. It looks like a museum, but she has totally given up her agency to be there.
She gave up her art. Remember in Season 2 how deeply involved she was in Lexi's play? Her creativity was her lifeblood. Now she is essentially a high-end kept woman. Her situation reflects a total lack of autonomy. She's treated less like a partner and more like a luxury handbag that Ellis keeps on a shelf.
The show highlights the tragedy of this beautifully when Rue comes over to visit.
Yes. Okay, so Rue comes over to the penthouse, and they are sitting on the floor eating Chinese food. And there is this palpable, heavy tension between them, all that history. Rue starts casually talking about her recent relationship with a character named Angel, and you can see Jules physically bristle. She gets visibly jealous. She looks at Rue, and with that old chaotic spark, she challenges her. She says, "You want me, make me yours." She baits Rue to kiss her. And babes, the show pulls off this incredibly dark, devastating subversion of our expectations.
It is masterful editing. The camera pushes in on their intense eye contact, the music swells, and the scene cuts away. Suddenly, we hear loud, passionate sex. As a viewer, you are primed by years of television tropes to think, finally, the slow burn pays off. Rue and Jules are reconnecting. Love wins.
But then the camera slowly pans over, the image comes into focus, and it is Jules having sex with Ellis, the plastic surgeon, not Rue.
It is such a gut punch. It snaps you right back into the cold reality of her financial arrangement. The fantasy of romantic escape is dead.
And that reality gets even colder the next morning. Ellis is getting dressed, and he finds a pair of plaid boxers on the floor of Jules' massive walk-in closet. They have Rue's initials written on the waistband. Now, we know Rue just left them there by accident. But Ellis immediately assumes Jules is bringing strange men into the penthouse while he is at work.
His reaction reveals the exact terms of their dynamic. He doesn't act heartbroken. He acts like a consumer whose product has been tampered with. He accuses her of risking bringing an STD into his pristine life. He picks up the boxers, throws them directly in her face, and delivers this absolutely devastating line, "I like you, but I love my family."
Oh my God. The psychological cruelty of that line. It completely strips away any illusion Jules might have had about her status in his life. She is a commodity. She's disposable. While Nate's torture is visceral and bloody, Jules' torture is deeply emotional. She realizes she sold her soul and her art for an empty penthouse where she is viewed as a potentially contaminated object.
It is incredibly bleak, and it brings up a major critique I've been seeing from the Snark squad in our comments and across all the fan forums. People are asking, like, is the show intentionally sidelining these legacy characters? Critics are complaining that Nate and Jules feel like afterthoughts this season. Their screen time is reduced, their agency is gone, and they are just being battered by their circumstances. Are they just collateral damage to make room for Maddy's management empire and the crime syndicate plots?
I see those complaints, but I actually think their marginalization is the entire point of the season.
Exactly. From a narrative perspective, yes, they are taking a back seat. But thematically, the show is demonstrating a terrifying truth. The adult world does not care about your high school hierarchy. Nate was a god in the hallways. Out here, he is just a debtor missing digits. Jules was a glittering muse. Out here, she is an easily replaceable side piece. The new systems of power, like Alamo Syndicate, the hyper-capitalist attention economy, have simply chewed them up and spit them out. They aren't the main characters of the real world anymore.
Speaking of Alamo Syndicate being chewed up, we have to transition to the character who is in the most immediate, heart-stopping physical danger. Babes, let's talk about Rue. Because the genre of this show has officially fractured, we have left the teen drama behind entirely.
We are fully operating in the logic of a cartel thriller now.
Without a doubt. Rue is currently operating as a confidential informant for the DEA. She's wearing a wire, trying to help the feds build a RICO case against the drug kingpin Laurie to save her own life. But the net is closing in on her, and it is closing fast. The tension in these scenes is just suffocating.
It's the scene in the bathroom with Bishop that really sets the stakes. Bishop is one of Alamo's top enforcers. We see him calmly suiting up in full, clear, plastic protective gear in a bathroom that has been lined with tarps. It is very Dexter. He looks over at Rue, who is trembling in the corner, and he tells her that she gives him the heebie-jeebies. He casually notes that ever since she showed up in their orbit, things have been going wrong for their crew. Deliveries are late, safe houses are getting busted, and then he turns on a power saw and begins to dismember Big Eddie, a guy who betrayed Alamo during a robbery.
Bishop's dialogue isn't just a threat. That's what's so scary. He isn't acting like a gangster puffing his chest. He's acting like an IT guy diagnosing a corrupted file. Alamo's organization isn't a chaotic street gang. It is a highly structured corporate infrastructure, and Bishop has correctly identified Rue as a systemic anomaly. She is the glitch in their operating system.
Right, he is patching the bug. And unfortunately for Rue, the evidence starts piling up rapidly. Remember Magic, the exotic dancer that Maddy just signed to her management company? Well, earlier in the episode, Rue desperately planted a bag of cocaine in Magic's locker at the club to try and frame her and take the heat off herself. But Magic finds it, and instead of hiding it, she immediately takes it to Alamo and says, "Someone is trying to set me up."
Which triggers Alamo to review the facts of his operation. He is sitting at his desk, and you can see the math happening in his head. He realizes a massive inconsistency. During a recent robbery at his club, Rue was present. She heard the voices of the robbers. And Alamo knows that those robbers were part of Faye's crew, people Rue had lived with, done drugs with, and knew intimately. But during the police questioning, Rue conveniently stayed quiet. She didn't identify them.
So Alamo connects the dots. He realizes she is playing both sides. He realizes she is a rat.
Rue was caught in an impossible, crushing vice grip. On one side, she has the DEA breathing down her neck, demanding she set up a wiretap directly on Laurie's phone, threatening her with a 20-year minimum federal sentence if she fails. On the other side, she has Alamo, who now knows she is an informant. She is a tiny, powerless pawn in a massive infrastructure war between the federal government, Alamo, and Laurie. She has absolutely zero agency.
Which leads to the climax of the episode. And I need to talk about the cinematography here because the visual language of the show does a massive shift. If you remember season 1, Rue's world was all neon lights, glitter tears, and this dreamy, ethereal, synth-heavy score by Labyrinth. It felt like a subjective, drug-induced haze. It put you inside the emotional safety blanket of the narcotics.
But now, the glitter's gone, babes.
Completely gone. The director switches to wide, sweeping 65mm film shots. For context, 65mm is the massive film stock they use for sweeping historical epics like Oppenheimer or Lawrence of Arabia. It provides incredible stark detail. It creates this unsparing daylight horror, and the music has shifted from Labyrinth to these booming, ominous, brass-heavy Hans Zimmer scores. The cinematography is explicitly telling the audience that the dream is over. The subjective haze has evaporated, leaving only the stark, unforgiving reality of adult consequences. You cannot put glitter on what is about to happen to her.
Rue is sitting at the diner having a surprisingly philosophical conversation with Maddy over milkshakes. They're talking about survival. And then Alamo approaches the booth. He is calm, he is wearing a beautiful suit, and he's absolutely terrifying. He sits down, charms Maddy, which, as we discussed, leads to their management business deal, and then casually, without breaking his smile, he tells Rue to go wait outside with his enforcers.
Maddy senses something is slightly off, but she is so blinded by her own ambition and the prospect of making millions with Alamo that she assumes it's just standard, shady club owner business. She stays in the booth. She has no idea she is watching Rue take what could be her final walk.
Rue gets into the SUV with Bishop and G, who, by the way, is played with terrifying stoicism by actual NFL legend Marshawn Lynch. They drive Rue out of the city, far into the desert, to this remote, desolate cliffside. They pull her out of the car, hand her a shovel, and give her a simple instruction. Dig.
They make her dig her own grave.
She's weeping, her hands are blistering, but she digs a hole until it is deep enough to reach her neck. And then, wordlessly, Bishop and G force her into the hole and bury her alive. They pack the dirt in tight until only her head is exposed above the hard, cracked ground.
The physical texture of this scene is suffocating. You can feel the weight of the earth on her chest. You can hear her struggling to draw breath.
As the sun comes up, casting these long, harsh shadows across the desert, the episode ends with this surreal, horrifying image. Alamo, dressed in full equestrian riding gear, comes galloping toward her exposed head on a massive thoroughbred horse. He is violently swinging a wooden polo mallet. He locks eyes with her, pulls his arm back, and right before the mallet makes contact with her skull, smashed to black.
It is an incredibly audacious, panic-inducing ending. It leaves you gasping for air.
Okay, we have to speculate here. My heart rate was at literally 140 BPM watching this. Did Rue just die? Are we laughing at the sheer absurdity of a polo mallet execution, or did they just kill the main character?
The consensus across all our sources, the Reddit threads, and my own personal analysis is a resounding no. She is not dead. First of all, she has plot armor. She is the narrator and the protagonist. But more importantly, from a structural narrative standpoint, she's the only character who knows the physical layout and security blind spots of Laurie's heavily guarded farm. Both the DEA and Alamo need her alive to navigate that space and take Laurie down.
So the polo mallet is just a fake-out. It's an intimidation tactic.
Exactly. Alamo is essentially showing her that he has the absolute power of life and death over her at any given second. He is a god in this desert. The question isn't whether she dies right now. The question is, will this sheer, unimaginable terror effectively frighten her into total submission? Will she break her immunity deal with the DEA, risk 20 years in federal prison, and go completely silent just to survive the morning?
It is a terrifying position to be in. The system is designed to bury her one way or another. Babe, take another breath, finish your glass of wine. Because we are moving into our Snark side segments to try and emotionally process everything we just watched.
Let's do it. Segment 1, most emotionally unstable. Who is spiraling the hardest this week?
I mean, I want to say me, after dealing with my mother at the spa. But, within the show, it has to be Nate. The man is sitting in a pile of rotting lo mein, letting a lone shark cut off his fingers while his ex-girlfriend funds his alcohol addiction by selling farts in a jar. That is rock bottom. That is the Mariana Trench of emotional instability.
I agree. Nate is in the worst physical position, but I'm going to award most emotionally unstable to Cassie, because Nate knows he's defeated. Cassie actually believes she is winning. She is so deeply unstable that she perceives a 50-foot algorithmic inflation of her ego as genuine love and respect. She thinks she's a thought leader. That level of cognitive dissonance is terrifying.
Which perfectly transitions us to segment 2. Would therapy fix this? Let's run down the list. Let's start with Ellis, Jules' plastic surgeon sugar daddy. Would therapy fix him?
Absolutely not. Ellis is a high-functioning clinical narcissist who views human beings as depreciating assets. A therapist would try to talk to him about empathy, and he would just critique the symmetry of the therapist's jawline. He is completely beyond help.
True. Okay, what about Maddy? Would therapy fix Maddy's sociopathic management style?
Maddy would out-manipulate the therapist. She would have the therapist taking a 15% pay cut and picking up dog poop by the end of the session. She doesn't need therapy. She needs a Fortune 500 company to run.
Okay, what about Jules?
Jules desperately, urgently needs therapy. Jules actually has the capacity for self-awareness, but she is so traumatized by her past that she keeps seeking out these gilded cages to hide in. A good therapist could actually help her reclaim her art and her agency.
Okay, moving on to segment 3, main character delusion rankings. We are ranking the characters from most self-aware to completely detached from reality.
At the very top, most self-aware is Maddy. She knows exactly what the world is, how ugly it is, and exactly how to exploit it. She has zero delusions about morality.
I would put Rue right beneath her. Rue is painfully self-aware of how screwed she is. She knows she is a pawn. She has no delusions of grandeur right now. She is just trying to keep her head attached to her neck.
In the middle, I'd put Lexi. Lexi thinks she's the moral compass of the show, but she still caved to Maddy's extortion and snuck Cassie into the audition. She's complicit, but feels guilty about it.
And then, at the absolute bottom, completely dangerously detached from reality, we have Cassie Howard. She is living in a different dimension. She thinks she is Cleopatra. She thinks she is a traditional wife. She thinks she is a titan of industry. She's none of those things. She is a balloon waiting for a pin.
Which brings us to our final segment. Segment 4, the Mother's Day Survival Awards. Because we deserve recognition for what we endured today.
Oh, absolutely. I am giving the award for most patient to the massage therapist who had to listen to your mom complain about you for an hour while kneading the knots out of her back. That woman deserves hazard pay.
I second that. And I am giving the award for most emotionally exhausted to both of us. Because navigating the passive-aggressive landmines of a family holiday, only to come home and navigate the systemic, capitalistic collapse of our favorite television characters, it is a miracle we are still speaking in complete sentences.
It really is. Babes, thank you so much for surviving this Sunday chaos with us. We love hanging out and trauma bonding with the Snark Squad.
We want to hear from you. Jump into the comments or our DMs. How did your Mother's Day go? Did you survive the passive aggression? Who do you think is the most chaotic character in this episode? And do family events emotionally drain you to the point where you need to watch prestige HBO drama just to feel normal again?
Remind yourselves to like, comment, and subscribe. Send in your messy stories, because we read all of them. And remember the lesson this week. The internet algorithm doesn't care if you are crying as long as you are clicking. So stay self-aware, stay chaotic. And we will see you on the Snark side.